Let's go back to the CAG report again, because once it did seem to be the foundation, and you'd have a section of it that was the school report. How many pages was the whole report? Do you remember off the top of your head?
500 plus.
Right.
All right.
I measured it in inches, not pages.
And how many of us memorized every page?
I know City Warren did.
So what Jeff is talking about and what Margie's talking about, I mean, they're obviously at the top of what's really important. I mean, what is it, about 61 or so % of the entire budget? Is it 61 roughly? Or
It's
58?
really actually on both the school side and the municipal side, it's close to 80% of our budget is compensation, salaries plus benefits. So if we have to hold down costs, inevitably it leads to that.
Well, what can we do? Because previously, I think it's reasonable to say that in addition to the CAG foundational report and focusing on the finances, there was also a general sense around town, I think, that there was less than stellar communication coming out of various departments in City Hall, and in some sense the school committee as well, although clearly the mayor took the brunt of that blame, I think it's fair to say. New mayor, fresh start, ability to deal with people in an entirely different fashion. In the past, it seems as though the executive branch, the aldermen, and the school committee did not actually communicate across those branches or groups all too well or all too effectively. One of the things that SETI talked about was zero-based budgeting. I also got the impression, I mean, you can argue about whether that's realistic if you take the exact terminology of that or not, but it could very well be. But one of the things I think that he was trying to say was look at everything as a fresh start in a new light. You have the ability to deal with all of these different constituent groups and different stakeholders in a new, fresh fashion. So that being the case, are there things that the CAG report came up with? Are there things that the Board of Aldermen has been talking about for the past few years but has not been able to put into place because of that dynamic was simply not as communication oriented as people might like to have seen? Ted, maybe you can speak to that, because the board obviously has to vote on the appropriation.
Yeah, there are things that the board can do, but you need to do it in cooperation with the mayor. 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago now, Marcia Johnson, who's an alderman at large from Ward 2, and I docketed an item that would have amended the charter to require strategic planning and long-range financial forecasting and performance management. That's something that got talked a lot about in this campaign. I'm very grateful that that happened. But it won't go anywhere without the mayor being involved in that. That said, tomorrow morning, Seti Warren and Ruth Balzer are going to have a joint press conference at which the mayor-elect is going to announce his transition team. And I know that it's going to include some people who are going to be working on just that, which is going to look at how to reorganize and restructure city government. It isn't really just a buzzword, zero-based budgeting, although it's susceptible to different interpretations. What we're really talking about is same thing President Obama got elected on, which was looking at every program, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and if it doesn't work, if you can't justify it, get rid of it, and then work with things that really will work, and then measure the performance rather than just relying on anecdotal evidence.
So over the next month or so, and this show will be repeated every day and on the web throughout the month of November and then after that as well, but when we talk about generalities like that, when does the specificity start to come through? When people who are watching this show, for example, when will they be able to say, it looks like somebody's on the right track somewhere? And let me go to Ruth Ann again for this, because your participation in the CAG report, I think, provides you with knowledge that frankly nobody else has, or at least not to the depth that you have it. What's the first concrete step that can be taken?
I think when the new mayor starts, the capital budget actually comes before the operating budget. So our new mayor in early spring will start having to provide his vision as shown by where he's going to allocate the dollars on the capital side. And then shortly after that comes both the operating budget dollars for the school committee as well as for the city side. So we'll have a lot of information by March, April, May as to where we're heading, and I think we'll be able to get a sense of what the next 4 years will bring.
And actually, I think the SETI has promised, and I've been in close contact with him, I know he will deliver on his promise to set out his vision and his primary objectives in January, so that we will have, and the public will have a chance to react to that, rather than having a fait accompli budget that goes to the printer and then comes out on a Friday night, and everybody pores over the line items over the weekend and tries to figure out what's what. We will know before that budget goes to the Board of Aldermen sometime, it's usually in April. We will know what the priorities are, what the goals are, what kind of restructuring is going to happen, what departments are going to get either cut or consolidated. I don't think it's going to be actually that late in the year, because I think, again, the new mayor is going to have to hit the ground running. We can't wait to do this, because by the time the new fiscal year starts on July 1st, you've already had 6 months of a honeymoon period that could go really sour unless there are some concrete steps that are laid out for people to evaluate.
I would agree, and on the school side, I think that we really have to start moving very quickly forward on some changes before we wait for the final budget cycle to complete. The superintendent, as you know, it serves as the effective, the CEO, and the board can set those priorities on really what direction we need to go in. Simultaneous to running the current operating budget, we're also recruiting a new superintendent. And I think what was key from the Citizens Advisory Group project is really to look at there needs to be a fundamental shift in the way that we start to finance and deliver educational services. It's not going to be enough to simply expect that negotiations with the union will carry the day. We really need to look across the entire system and think of new ways of doing this. The good news is Newton is not alone in looking at some of these issues, and there are lots of ideas that both can be done in terms of better collaboration on the municipal side as well as the school committee side. Maintenance and capital planning is one of them. And I think there are many, many other opportunities in terms of partnerships and leveraging the folks who are around our community and bringing other resources to bear that really have not been fully realized yet. So that's some of what I'm looking to do, is really accelerate some of the things that people have been talking about for the last couple of years, work collaboratively across the board, and not just within the different branches of government, but also to engage the public and be very forthright on the kinds of opportunities that we have, what is the time frame for doing that, what are we expecting in terms of support, and what's the timeline for achievement.
Okay. Did you have something, Jeff? We only have about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think Jim Marini is really on this because he understands the budget's going to be difficult. So he's already looking quite carefully at ways to try and improve delivery of things. For example, even in the math program, the math coaches, which we know are not sustainable, he's looking at right now. So other things that can be looked at, as Margie says, there's things that are far out and we should start looking at them now, but there's also the things that are close in and we have to really look at them as well. But we should not neglect the long-term ones for the short. So it's really important to get everything going real fast here.
Okay. Half hour goes very, very quickly. I want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate you being here. The first post-election program. This will continue. We're going to try to have as much communications out of the Board of Aldermen and School Committee as possible. Margie Ross-Dector, Jeff Epstein, Ted Hess-Mahan, Ruth Ann Fuller, all newly or re-elected or newly elected to the various positions throughout the city. This program will be repeated throughout the month of November on New TV. For days and times, please visit newtonnewsmakers.org. The program will also be available in its entirety 24/7. Imagine that. On demand at newtonnewsmakers.org. And once again, congratulations to our new mayor, SETI Warren, on his mayoral victory, a history-making victory, and to also all the other candidates, both incumbents and challengers alike, who take time from their busy lives to take part in the democratic process. Nobody ever said it would be easy, but this is a great city, and clearly all of us here believe it's worth the effort. Thanks for watching.
Newton Newsmakers is made possible through the generous support of First Commons Bank, Beacon Street in Newton Center, representing the future of banking with an inviting environment, the latest banking technologies, and a personal touch to make banking convenient, simple, and sensible. Also at firstcommonsbank.com.